What is a situation in your life that has shifted your perspective on how you view life now?
Growing up, my parents were never together. My dad had kicked my mom out of the house when I was 2 weeks old, and I lived with her. She had full custody, but I saw him every other weekend, and when I was seeing him and at his house, I endured a lot of abuse, physical, emotional, verbal abuse, and that went on until the summer before my 5th grade year when he had a stroke, and because of his stroke he was unemployed, didn't have to work, and he got disability checks, and because of that he didn't have to fight for custody anymore, so he didn't have to pay child support, so he decided to stop seeing me because he didn't have to anymore. And I didn't see him for a year and a half, and then my 6th grade year, I was 11, I got pulled into my counselor's office and my mom was there, and I was terrified I had gotten in trouble, but I wasn't, and that's when I found out that he had passed away from a heart attack. And when I heard about that, it was kind of just a whirlwind of emotions. I was relieved. I didn't have to live in fear anymore. I was sad because my dad had just died, and I was angry because that father figure was taken away from me. Whatever father figure there was, it was gone now. So something that I kind of learned from that was, first of all, don't take people for granted. You never know where they're gonna go, what's gonna happen to them. Even if they're your best friend, your family members, your worst enemy, like, never take them for granted. And also be mindful of the situations that other people are going through, because someone could be having the worst day of their life and you don't know. And then what kind of solidified the whole taking people for granted thing, because I think I still continued to do that, was my junior year of high school. I found out my mom had cancer. She had a melanoma, and we didn't know how bad it was until her surgery, and my mom and I were the only ones that lived in Oregon at the time. My rest of the family was in California. So I was her entire support system. My family was leaning on me for the details, the support. So everything was on my shoulders, and I was a complete wreck, but I couldn't let anyone know that. So I had to keep my cool. And I took my mom to her surgery. I took care of her. I took time off school for it. And the whole time I was just terrified of losing my mom too, because I never really thought that would happen. I took that for granted. I always thought I lost my dad, but I had my mom, and I took that for granted, because in that moment I was terrified, because I could have wound up an orphan because I was still 17 at the time. And that kind of made me and my mom a lot closer, because we talked about it after everything, and she's good now, she's fine, cancer free, they got it all. But it made me realize that I can't take my mom for granted. I can't take my friends, my enemies, anyone for granted, because you never know when they're gonna get sick, when they're gonna die, all that. So taking people for granted is my big perspective change in life.
Handling that at such a young age, I mean, most people's worries in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade are not concerns with their parents. So did you kind of feel out of place, or not being able to talk to anyone? What was that situation like for you?
I definitely had a lot of struggles when I was younger, because I would see my friends, go over to friends' house and see their relationships with their parents, and it was always something that I really wanted. I wanted that good relationship with my dad, or that whole familia or family, just having your mom and dad together in the same house.
Family dynamic.
Yeah, that family dynamic. And it's just always something that I kind of wanted, and was jealous of my friends in a way. And no one really understood my perspective, so I didn't really talk about it that much. And it also kind of made me act out in certain ways when I was younger, because I didn't know how to deal with it. Yeah, I think it really shifted who I was because of everything with my dad. I had to grow up a lot faster, and I was way more independent than a lot of my peers and a lot of the people around me. So moving out to college, I know a lot of kids were nervous to leave home, be on their own for so long, and I never really had that fear. I was kind of ready to go, and it definitely, because I had to grow up faster, I feel like in a way I'm like can be more mature about things, and I have been from like a really young age. I was like mature about a lot of things.
If someone is watching through this and they might need a little sense of perspective and just kind of understanding that to forgive people and to, like, as you said, like your worst enemies, like what would be the best advice that you could give on how to do that, like how to forgive people and how to not take things for granted?
I mean, I'm still learning how to do that, and I don't think anyone has that down, because it's really hard to forgive someone who's done you wrong or done something to you to hurt you. And like especially with like my dad, like everything he put me through, I hated him for it, and I still have that hate for him. But at the same time, he was my dad. He was the only father figure I'm ever gonna get, and from my perspective, losing that is worse off than like if he was still here and I could have fixed that relationship or mended that relationship. So it's more of like forgiveness for what they've done, but also just like understanding that like possibility for like that relationship to be better or to grow